Back at it, part 3. Let's dive straight into it. Let's go. Now, a similar division took place in the Minguis, and the independent nations sprang from them were the Harans or Wyandots. Hottentots. Okay, look at Wyandots, right? Okay, near Lake Haran, the Aries or Arigas on Lake Erie in Ohio, the Tuscaroras in Kentucky, the Sanikas, Mohawks, Cayugas, Oneedas on the St. Lawrence, etc. That portion of the nation which remained west of the Mississippi became mixed with some Ottoman tribes and formed the great Dakota nation, since divided into many nations such as the Sioux, Assiniboines, Tintans, Yanktons, etc. Now, the third period, from the dispersion of the Lenapes towards 800 to the Shawnee Confederacy towards 1100, including 300 years. The Oghuzzian nations had united for a long while against their southern enemies, but many Mingui tribes became jealous of the Lenapes when they saw them possessed of the best lands and growing very powerful. Dissensions occurred between the various tribes east and west of the mountains. Now, the Senecas and Mohawks began to quarrel with the Mohegans and Lenapes. They endeavored to excite wars between them and the Cherokees. Several wars occurred between the Lenapes and many Minguis in which the Wyandots and Irigas take no part. Meanwhile, the Shawnees of Kentucky had many quarrels and wars with their neighbors. They drive away the Tuscaroras to Carolina and some Irigas, towards Florida. They waged war by turns with the Natchez, Tapusas, Cherokees, and the Appalachians to the south, with the Catawbas, Wakons, and Westos of the east, the Capahas, Osages, etc. to the west. Not satisfied with the possession of Kentucky, they extend their conquests and settlements as far as Lake Ontario to the north, in Carolina and Georgia to the south. The Cumberland River became the center of their settlements. They were hostile to all their neighbors except those of the Lenapean origin, and being in contact with many more than any other branch, were considered as the bulwark of that nation. In order to resist their numerous enemies, they formed a general confederacy extending from the lakes to Florida, which soon became formidable even to their former allies, under the name of the Massawomes or Wassawomis. The branches of this great alliance were known by the names of Sakis and Kikapus in the west, Uchis and Chawans in the east, Satanas in the north, Savanas in the south, etc. Now, within the fourth period, from the Shawnee Confederacy towards 1100 to the Ottawa Supremacy towards 1400, including 300 years. The Ottawas were a branch of the Lenapes, settled north of the lakes and holding supremacy over the northern Lenapes. Being driven south of the lakes by their wars with the Minguis, they assumed a supremacy over the Miamis of Ohio, whom they defeated in battle, but they had more difficulty in their contentions with the powerful Shawnees. A long war was the result. The Ottawas conquered part of central Kentucky and compelled at last the Shawnees to acknowledge them as superiors and entitled to hold the great council fire in the west, as the Lenapes did in the east. During the struggle, many revolutions had occurred around Kentucky. The Conoys had become powerful in the Kanawha Valley and the Illinois on the Wabash. The Shawnees enter into an alliance with them. The Chickasaws begin to grow powerful in the southwest and wage war with the Shawnees, etc. The supremacy of the Ottawas was acknowledged gradually by all the Lenapeans west of the mountains, and the chief of that tribe was considered as the greatest chief. They settled in many parts of Lake Huron in Michigan, on the Mississippi and left Kentucky to the Shawanese. Now, within the fifth period from the Ottawa supremacy towards 1400 to the invasion of Soto towards 1540, including about 140 years. Now, towards the discovery of America by these people they want to call Christopher Colombo in 1492, the situation of the nations residing in Kentucky or the immediate neighborhood was nearly as follows. To his account, okay, the Massawomis, or Shawanese, had possession of the greatest part of Kentucky, the Cumberland Valley and Tennessee, nearly all the banks of the Ohio, and they had settlements or colonies in Illinois, Georgia, Carolina, Tennessee, etc. Okay, now we ain't talking about tents, bro. Y'all gotta get that out your mind. We talking about legit big time colonies and towns, settlements, bro. We was popping off in these states, man. They had nearly 100 towns, many of which were very populous. So you have to dodge the hijack and everything that you think about what they placed in relation to the Indians, bro, and indigenous people to this land, you know, over thousands of years. Not necessarily all indigenous, you know, originating. But you understand what I'm saying. The Chickasaws claimed by conquest of the west of Tennessee and Kentucky and resided southerly of the Ohio, west of the Mississippi, near Kentucky. The most powerful nations were the Capahas, Osages, Anilios, Quiguas, etc., the two last of Lenapean origin, and extending east as far as the Wabash. In Ohio were the Miamis, Ericas, Tonocorias, etc. In Virginia, the Conoys, Monacans, Powhatans. In Tennessee, the Cherokees, Chujis, or Ichias. On the St. Lawrence, 5 tribes of Menguis, the Senecas, Mohawks, Oniadas, Cayugas, and Onondagos, had united into a league, which soon became formidable under the name of Iroquois, or 5 nations, to all the Oghuzzian nations. Okay, so now you know what's going on with the Iroquois. To all the Oghuzzian nations, where they come from, y'all already know what's up. On the Atlantic shores, the Lenapean tribes have divided into numerous nations, often at war with each other for supremacy or dominion. Several other nations besides the Atalans, Kutans, Istacans, and Oghuzzians had reached various parts of America before the modern Europeans, such as the Mayans or Malays, the Scandinavians, the Chinese, the Anus of Eastern Asia, the Nagrians, or African Negro. From the Spanish discovery or invasion under Soto towards 1543 till the settlement of Kentucky by the Virginians in 1773, including about 230 years. So this first period, which is the introduction, of course, 1492, according to the Scaligerine timeline, discovery of America by Christopher Columbus, or Cristoforo Colombo. 1496 was the discovery of North America by Sebastian Cabot. So these are discoveries for their lineage or their people. It has nothing to do with the real true discovery or yeah. So 1512 discovery of Florida. So apparently J. Ponce de Leon discovered Florida for him and his tribe, his people. Discovery of Georgia in 1520 by Mervello, who calls it Cisoria. 1525 invasion of Georgia by Mervello, who are defeated by the Shawanese and other nations together. Then we have 1528, which is a second invasion and defeat of the Spaniards in Florida. Then 1536, which is 636. So then we have the third invasion of the Spaniards in Florida. He discovers the Mississippi, reaches Culiacan on the Pacific Ocean, across the continent. Culiacan. Khan. Okay. Second period, 16th century, 1539. Soto, governor of Cuba, invades North America with an army of 1,050 men and 300 horses. He lands in Florida, defeats many nations, and winters in Appalachia. 1540, Soto visits the Cofas, Cherokees, Shawnees, Curas, etc., discovers Tennessee, wins a great battle at Mobile, and winters at the Chickasaws. 1541, battle with the Chickasaws. Soto crosses the Chukagua, or Mississippi. Okay, Soto crosses the Chukagua, or also known as the Mississippi, but originally known as Chukagua. Visits Kapaha and Tula, discovers Arkansas, and winters in Utiange. In 1542, Soto wanders west of the Mississippi, or Chukagua, discovers the Missouri, and dies at Guachoya. The Washashas. Almost sounds like Washitas. Very similar. Washashas. Washita. Okay? Same syllables. Very close in etymology. Or the Osages. Near the Anilcos or Ilicos or Illinois. Okay? See how that goes? Anilcos or Ilicos or Illinois. He is succeeded by Moscoso, who vainly attempts to reach Mexico by land, goes no further than the Aches or Panis, and returns to the Missouri near the Osages, winters at Manoa or Manoas. Then you got 1543, the Spaniards reduced to 350 men and threatened by the king of the Quiguas or Wiwas, with a powerful attack, embark in 21 boats and going day and night reach the mouth of the Mississippi in 20 days after losing many men in battle with the Quiguas, okay, who pursued them for 10 days. Only 300 Spaniards reached Panuco and Mexico, discovery of Illinois and Kentucky, and descending the Mississippi. 1545, the Muskogees settled east of the Mississippi and become afterward the head of the Southern Confederacy. 1550, the Minguis began to wage war with all their neighbors. They destroyed the Satanas, a branch of the Massawomis, and settled in their country south of Lake Ontario. In 1516, we have documentation showing that the Massawomis of Kentucky are at war with the southern nations and many eastern nations, but at peace with the nations north of the Ohio. They form a settlement on the Susquehanna. 1562-68, settlements and wars of the French and Spaniards in Carolina and Georgia, in which many nations take a part. 1584-89, first settlements of the English in North Carolina, wars with the Virginians, etc. 3 unsuccessful colonies. Kentucky was included in the charter of the colony. 1590, Wahun Sanakok, king of the Powhatans in Virginia, conquers many tribes and becomes formidable to all his neighbors, even the Massawomis and Erigas of Kentucky. He adopts Opechan, a wise Shawnee, for his brother, and makes him king of Pamunkey. 1595, the Erigas, a powerful nation of Mingui or origin, is now scattered from Lake Erie to Florida in various tribes called Eronons, Ton Gorias, Reche, Hecrians, Gri, Gras, etc., and is at war with the Minguis and Genesee. Now, third period of the 17th century, 1607, we have a permanent settlement of the English in Virginia, the colony including Kentucky in its charter. The French settle in Canada. 1608, We have the first interview of the English with the Shawanese or Wassawomis of Kentucky. Sir J. Smith meets one of their war party in the Chesapeake, going to attack the Susquehannos and Tocois. The Nantacares or Nanticos of Maryland went to trade with them beyond the mountains. So in 1618, the death of Wahum Sanako, king of the Powhatans, he is succeeded by Opekan, the Shawnee king of Pamunkey, who takes the title of Mango Peoman, and becomes the foe of the settlers. That's a big one right here, y'all. That's a big drop. So the death of Wahun Sanako, king of the Powhatans, he is succeeded by Opekchan, the Shawnee king of Pamunkey, who takes the title of Mango Peoman and becomes the foe of the settlers. So this Mango Peoman is standing strong. Why don't we hear about him? Why don't we hear about Mango Peoman, who is Opechan? And you see how the names change. I bet you there's some people out there that say these two different people, but they one and the same. And that's how our chronology really gets messed up, and Flamenco talks about that a lot. When people change titles and names and takes on new titles, within the historical record, a lot of the times they turn into phantoms, duplicates, of many different people when it's actually one and the same person, and at different time periods too. And that's what's a trip. So in 1640, the Minguis succeeded to destroy the Irigas of Ohio. Arigas. The remains of that nation fly to East Kentucky, etc. So in 1642, the end of the wars between the English and the Powhatans, which had lasted 20 years, y'all. Opechan is taken and dies, 95 years old. He is succeeded by his son, Totopotomoy, who makes peace. In 1654, Colonel Wood explores Kentucky as far as the Mississippi. In 1656, Rechechecrians, or Grigras, cross the Allegheny and invade Virginia, being molested by the Minguis. Captain Hill and King Totopotomoy, who attacked them, are defeated. The king is killed. They soon after leave the country and are admitted by the Natchez into their confederacy. In 1660, the Minguis, rendered powerful by firearms, lay waste all the country on the Ohio and make war on the Tongoreas, Shawanese, Miamis, Illinois, Chickasaws, Natchez, etc., often coming down the Ohio in war parties. They destroy the Conoys or Kenhawas. So you see what's going on, y'all, in 1660. This is very close to around 1666, okay? Now in 1667, Captain Bat visits the Allegheny Mountains from Virginia. For some reason, this is thrown in there. I don't know why. And then in 1670, Captain Bolt visits Kentucky from Virginia. Maybe these are really good accounts. Maybe Captain Bat has a really good account of what's going down. Is he the same as above? So they're trying to say is Captain Bolt and Captain Bat one and the same in this instance? Maybe we need to research into Captain Bat and Captain Bolt to see what the historical record has to say in relation to writings that possibly could have come from either one. In 1672, Father Marquette descends the Mississippi from Illinois and discovers the Missouri, Ohio, Wabash, etc. He finds 40 towns of Shawanese on the Ohio and its lower branches. In 1680, Father Hennepin descends the Mississippi to its mouth from Illinois and visits Kentucky, etc. The Tennessee is called Cherokee River. 1683, Captain Tonti descends the Mississippi to its mouth for the first time with La Salle. Kentucky visited again. 1685, a second voyage of Tonti down the Mississippi, and in 1638, another third voyage by Tonti. In 1700, at the end of this century, the Shawanese of Kentucky were defeated and humbled by the Minguis. So the Minguis are just taking over everything, dude. Those of Georgia were compelled to enter the Muskogee Confederacy. The Tongoreas of East Kentucky were united with the Cherokees and the Illinois, Miamis, Kickapoos, etc. often crossed Kentucky to go war against the Chickasaws. Now in the fourth period of the 18th century, 1710, Colonel Spotswood governor of Virginia, crosses the Allegheny Mountains and explores the country near Kentucky. In 1712, the great Appalachian nation, destroyed partly by the Carolinians in 1702 and the Alabamos in 1705. The remains blend with the Muskogee Confederacy. In 1720, the French traders begin to descend the Ohio. In 1722, a treaty at Albany between the Virginians and the Minguis or Iroquois. The Minguis or Iroquois. The Mingui or Iroquois. The land west of the Allegheny Ridge is acknowledged as belonging to the Iroquois, who claim it by conquest over the Erigas, Ganois, Dongorias, etc. Okay? Got that? Now, in 1731, the Natchez are destroyed by the French. The remains of the great nation take refuge with the Chickasaws. So the Natchez take refuge with the Chickasaws. A war follows in consequence with the French, which lasts many years. So the French just coming down here destroying everybody. We already got the Iroquois, the Minguis, down here destroying everybody. Then we got the French coming right behind them, taking the rest. In 1739, Mr. Longueuil descends the Ohio from Canada and discovers Big Bone Lick in Kentucky. Many Canadians follow that road. In 1745, the Shawanese of Kentucky have retreated on their banks of the Ohio, Miami, and Muskingum to avoid their southern enemies, being now at peace with the Minguis and allied with them against the Cherokees, Catawbas, Muskogees, Chickasaws, etc. Kentucky remained the hunting ground of the northern and southern nations where they met at war. Now in 1750, Dr. Thomas Walker of Virginia crossed the Allegheny and Washioto Mountains, which he calls Cumberland. He discovers Cumberland Gap, the Shawnee River, which he calls Cumberland River, Kentucky River, which he calls Louisa, etc. 1751, several Indian traders descend the Ohio. In 1752, Lewis Evans publishes his map of Kentucky and etc. from the account of those traders. In 1754, James McBride descends the Ohio as far as the mouth of Kentucky, and these are all accounts that we can dive into to get a deeper understanding of what was probably going on from their encounters, and that's why they're mentioned. In 1760, the second visit of Dr. Walker to Kentucky as far as Dick River. In 1764, the Shawanese removed to Ohio from Pennsylvania and to the Wabash from Green River. In 1767 to 1774, Kentucky is visited by traders and hunters from Virginia and North Carolina and begins to be settled after extinguishing the claims of the Cherokees and Iroquois. Do you hear that? After extinguishing the claims. And the Iroquois ain't even from that region. But the Shawanese best claim having never been attended to. This was the cause of the war at which they waged with their allies against the Virginian settlers for more than 20 years. Ever since 1756, an alliance of all the Oghuzzian tribes north of the Ohio having been formed against the Iroquois, Cherokees, and Chickasaws, the Virginians were considered as new intruders who had bought the land from their foes. On to the conclusion. So all the details which might have explained and the notes which have proved my statements have been unavoidably omitted in order to confine myself within the short prescribed limits. I am merely allowed to add the enumeration of the principal monuments of antiquity and a mere list of the authors in which all the facts are to be found which I have asserted, except those derived from my personal examination of the geology, antiquities, and languages of North America. A philological and ethnological view of nearly 400 American and Eastern nations or languages with their comparative names for land and water was also found by far too long for insertion, although this is now considered as the base of historical researches. Now, this appendix is pretty cool because it's an enumeration of the sites of ancient towns and monuments of Kentucky. And it says the following catalog contains the first general account ever published of the ancient monuments hitherto discovered in this state, the greatest part of which has been discovered, surveyed, drawn, and described by myself in my large manuscript work on the antiquities of Kentucky, which has nearly 100 maps and views. As a further illustration of the subject, I add a short account of the monuments of the surrounding states, so these intimately connected with ours. They are very ancient except these marked L, which appear to be less ancient, from 100 to 1,000 years, and to belong to the Lenapean tribes or nations. Here he says, the total number of ancient sites known to me in Kentucky amounts therefore to 148, and the ancient remains or monuments are 505. Those already known to me in the remainder of North America are the following: many towns, forts, mounds, etc., an elliptical teocalli of 800 feet and 15 feet high on Cedar Creek, a teocalli of 1,120 feet and 75 feet high on the Tlatoani, a circus of 25 acres in Jones Valley, with a square teocalli in the center of 720 feet and 30 feet high. Arkansas towns, mounds, etc., several mounds and teocallis as high as 40 feet below the town of Arkansas, remains of town built of sunburnt bricks on the St. Francis River, etc. Sunburnt bricks. Sunburnt bricks. Canada, mounds and forts between Lake Huron and Erie. Connecticut, inscribed rocks at Seaticook and Tiverton. Florida, many embankments, excavations, mounds, etc., not very ancient. Many high mounds, avenes, and artificial ponds or tanks near Lake George. Georgia, many large square teocallis, some with 3 stories, and avenues leading to square excavations on the Ocmulgee. 4 square teocallis and 4 square excavations near Apalachicola. 2 oval teocallis on Suquet Creek. One is 100 feet high, the other 40. The stone fort on a high hill. In Illinois, many conical mounds in the American bottom. On the Mississippi, a square teocalli of 1,200 feet to 100 feet high, and with 2 sloping stages on the Cahokia, a square teocalli of 600 feet and 20 feet high near St. Louis, a stone fort on Saline River, mounds near the mouth of the Ohio. Indiana, towns and mounds on the Wabash, White River, and the Ohio, near the falls. Louisiana, many mounds on the Mississippi, at Baton Rouge, etc., 4 square teocallis of 240 feet and 22 feet high, equal, forming a square, joined by a wall and ditch, with an avenue leading to a conical teocalli of 115 feet high, spiral road on it, on Bayou Kata Alu. On the Bayou Kata Alu. 5 mounds of shells near Lake Kata Alu is 80 feet high. A high mound on Red River, built in 1728 by the Natchez, many in Tensa. So we go into Maine, Mexico, Michigan, Mississippi, 90 feet high, 150 feet long. I mean, literally going through all of our ancient mounds and towns and cities, embankments, civilizations here. Again, made with sun-dried brick. And we've gone over this. Now, this appendix is very extensive. I think it'd be pretty cool for some people in my researches of, what he's saying here. The actual number of ancient seats of populations or sites already ascertained by me in North America amount, therefore, to 541, of which 393 out of Kentucky and 148 in Kentucky, while the ancient monuments found in those sites amount already to 1,830, of which 505 in Kentucky and 1,325 out of it. If by my researches during 4 years I have been able thus to increase the knowledge of the number of ancient sites and monuments in a single state of Kentucky from 25 sites to 148 and from 100 monuments to 505, it is very probable that when equal industry will be exercised in the other states, that number will be more than doubled, since I entertain no doubt that 1,000 sites and 4,000 monuments exist still in the United States, exclusive of Mexico, besides the small boroughs and those that have been destroyed. And I mean, it's pretty deep, y'all. So this one's pretty cool. I like the information that's in here because we got deep. We got to be able to really get deep in relation to who are the mound builders. And though we didn't go into the allegory or alleganes as much as I would like to, we're going to keep doing that. And we have before. So let's continue to do that. So let's just continue to keep diving in. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep understanding what was really going on, where these people came from, and where the signs and records that show of all of the wars that were waged. Because it's